Good morning, good morning, good morning. We are live. Good morning. If you're joining us live on LinkedIn, good morning. If you're joining us on YouTube, good morning. If you're joining us on LinkedIn, it takes a while to connect through to LinkedIn, but if you are joining us live, please do say good morning in the comments. Let us know where you're joining us from. Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning. Nice to be here. Hello, everybody.
Yes, and Michelle, where are you joining us from today?
I am from sunny Edinburgh. It's a whole 22 degrees outside today. It's very
Is
warm
it
for us.
really? It's like
It
the
is stunning.
Yeah, it's like the tropics in Edinburgh at 22 degrees.
We're all melting up here. It's very warm for us. But
And
nice to see the sun.
yeah, and I know Michelle, you've like been frantically like catching trains and all of that sort of thing to actually get into the office today. And my first comment was, "You're in the office on a Friday?" That's like,
I know
which
we are very lucky to have Prosecco taps in this office. So it does enhance us to come in on a Friday. So can't complain too
you
much.
you have Prosecco taps.
Beer taps and Prosecco taps. They're not open till 3 o'clock, so we're not having it for breakfast, but they are
But
here.
still, oh my gosh, Prosecco. I mean, I don't drink anymore, but it's Prosecco taps. Wow, that would have been like my place to be for sure. Um, yeah, anything to do to get people in right on a Friday. Gosh, people are getting desperate. They're literally installing taps in offices. So I've got Michelle with me, and you're based in Edinburgh. So are you in the centre of Edinburgh? Whereabouts is the office?
Yeah, we're literally on Princess Street. If I look out the window of the balcony
Ah.
opposite me, I can see Edinburgh Castle, Scots Monument. We're so central. We're really lucky.
Nice. I used to have an assignment where I used to have to go up to Edinburgh on the train many years ago. But yeah, it's such a beautiful place. So I'm just imagining your view now. So yeah, I've got Michelle Hunter with me. Michelle, we have a tradition on this show where I get Claude to write your bio, and then
Oh,
you get to
okay.
score it. So here we go. So today I'm joined by Michelle Hunter, project manager at Indeed Flex. Michelle leads high value project portfolios in a fast growth SaaS business and holds APM and project control qualifications, both with distinction. Ooh. Alongside her day job, she provided project management support to Flex Pride, Indeed Flex's LGBTQ plus network, for their partnership with Pride Edinburgh, work she later presented as a case study at this year's ERG Leader Summit. Welcome, Michelle.
Very good. That's pretty spot on. How did they know it had a distinction? There you go. I didn't know that was out there.
I don't know. Yeah, it must be somewhere. It must be. Marks out of 10 for Claude's bio.
I think that's a strong 10 out of 10. I have no idea how Claude
Oh,
knows all that about me.
it'd be amazing what's on the internet, right? It's
It's
10 out of
these
10.
AI.
Yeah.
These AI things
Although
are scary.
they are. Although saying that, I was having an argument with Claude and with Gemini yesterday because I was recording this video and I was saying that something was in a book that I'd read. The book was The Authority Gap. And both Claude and Gemini were like, no, it's not in that book. And I was like, it absolutely is. And I literally went to the page and I took a photograph of it and I uploaded it and I said, well, we're not going to be replacing humans anytime yet because this definitely is in this book. And they both apologized, of course. Right. So we're going to be talking about your project management support for Flex Pride's partnership with Pride Edinburgh. Just give us the headline. So for anybody that maybe wasn't at the summit, what happened and what was your role? So what was the sponsorship of Pride Edinburgh that Indeed Flex had?
Yeah, for sure. So I work with our Pride BRG. We call it BRG. I know you guys call it an
BRG,
ERG,
Business
which
Resource
is a
Group. Yeah.
conversation. Yes. So I work with the Flex Pride group, and we've done a lot of things internally. We've done a lot of kind of education across the business. We've done a lot of things with we call ourselves Flexperts, who are anybody that works at Indeed Flex. So we did a lot of work internally, and we were looking to work with our actual flexers, so the workers that work from the Indeed Flex app. And we were trying to think of ways to kind of take it out from being an internal resource group to working with our actual workers and with our clients and kind of expanding. So that's where it came about. We had a session where we had kind of almost like a brainstorming session. It was like, right, what can we do? And everybody had the most amazing ideas, Manchester Pride, New York Pride, all these amazing ideas. It was wild. But I think having a project manager brain there, I was like, how are we going to do that? We don't have much, but we've got a very small budget.
New York Pride, I would have been there. Yeah, New York Pride, wowzers. Yeah.
I mean, it would have been great. I'd absolutely be here for it. But I think when you've got a project manager brain, you're like, but how? I'd love to do that, but maybe not going to happen. Yeah. So the idea was I took it away, had a look over the ideas, and I thought, what if we started somewhere small? So I am obviously based in Edinburgh. I've been to Edinburgh Pride for many, many years. I know how it all works. Even then, so it literally started from me sending an email via the Edinburgh Pride website to say, hi, we'd love to work with you. What can we do to work with you? We'd love to help. And that was it. It sort of snowballed from there.
Yeah.
It was really kind of organic, just a quick email to say, hello, we'd love to work together. What can we do? Yeah. Kind of led on from there, got in contact with the right people. And long story short, we actually ended up not being one of the sort of headline sponsors because we had quite a small budget. So we had to kind of work within those parameters. But actually what we ended up doing was sponsoring the volunteers, which was a really nice fit for us. A lot of our workers that work on the Flex app, our Flexers, were actually volunteering at the event anyway. So it actually worked out really, really nicely for us. It was within our budget that we had. And we were the first ever sponsors of the volunteers, which was really, really nice. And we worked well at Edinburgh Pride, who looks after the volunteers, is an amazing person. He runs it all as well as his full-time job. And the work that they do is incredible.
Amazing. Yeah. And I hadn't realized, I mean, and as you said, just reaching out to the Edinburgh Pride team and just saying, hey, hello, we want to get involved. It's really, just taking the ball by the horns, basically. Got a couple of good mornings, a couple of people in chat. Kamal, good morning. I don't know where you're joining us from, Kamal. And then Junior Beeman, you're watching us on YouTube today. LinkedIn says the live has ended. It's from our end. It's saying that it's still connected, but apologies. Maybe you can drop a comment drop the link in LinkedIn, Junior, if you wouldn't mind. So drop the YouTube link into where the LinkedIn live is. Maybe that will direct people over onto YouTube. Find us on the YouTube. I know LinkedIn, I could do a whole nother LinkedIn live chat about the LinkedIn live technology. But if you've come over to YouTube from the LinkedIn, yes, we are here. Thank you. Okay, boss. Thank you so much, Junior. Yeah, the technology on YouTube is a lot better generally in terms of the live technology, in terms of the streaming. So if you've come over from LinkedIn, please do drop a good morning in the YouTube chat. We can sort of take it from there. I've got Michelle Hunter with me, and Michelle was just explaining about how the Edinburgh Pride sponsorship came about, which is something obviously we heard about at the ERG Leader Summit. Now here's the thing, and the way that you've just described it there in terms of reaching out quite informally, because one of the things that really stood out for me when you and Kelton were explaining what had happened was the fact that you didn't go with the standard sponsorship package, because I think a lot of people, a lot of ERGs, BRGs, networks look at Pride and they think, oh my gosh, this is way too expensive. We could never afford it. But actually you were quite creative, right?
That's it. We did look at the packages. There was big headline sponsors out. Lidl had a big double-decker bus on the march. They were headline sponsors, and we just didn't have that sort of budget, so we had to kind of get creative. But what we did is we worked really collaboratively with Edinburgh Pride, and what we provided lunches for all the volunteers. So as well as kind of a sponsorship package, we helped out with things like that. Some of our workers helped on the day to set up. So they helped. There was a community fair where everybody had tables and people kind of went around and learned about different organisations. And because we helped them set up, they gave us a free table. So we had our own display throughout the day. So we kind of worked in a really collaborative way that kind of benefited both of us.
Yeah.
So I would say, if you're looking at it, we downloaded the brochure and I thought, oh my God, we can't afford this. But then ask the question, because you just never know.
Yeah.
It's worth asking and seeing if there is a way, saying like, we've got this small budget, we really do want to work together, we really do want to help. How can we kind of make this work? And that really worked for us with Edinburgh.
Absolutely. And what I loved about it when I first heard about it as well. So if we just get on to like the business case, and I know I remember when you were presenting this at the summit, and I even look at it now, there was a slide that was like business case approved. There's like almost like a whole celebration. So just talk us through why it was important for you to do this as like presenting like a proper full business case and getting the sign up. How important was that in the process?
It was really important in terms of we needed budget, basically. We needed to get a budget from somewhere within the business. We're really lucky. Our exec sponsor is our country manager, and she's really involved in the ERG. She's absolutely brilliant. So and she's one of these people that her door is open. So I dropped her a quick Slack and said, Sarah, I want to present to you an opportunity we've got in Edinburgh about Pride. Can I have some time with you? And right away, she was like, no problem. We jumped on a call like this, and I had a full-blown presentation, went through about Edinburgh Pride, how many people come to the city, how it would benefit the business in terms of, I had to link it into the business kind of goals and show that we were bringing some return on investment in. And again, with Edinburgh, it's a small city. If there's an event on, our hotels are busy, our bars are busy. So I was able to kind of say, we're going to have X amount of people come to Edinburgh for this weekend, which will impact our hotel. We work a lot in hospitality. So that will equal kind of more shifts in hotels, more shifts in bars. We can work with our bars. We can go out to our clients and say, we are supporting Pride this year, which we did. We did a fantastic couple of days around the city where the whole Edinburgh team, Karan, Kelton, come up, and we went around with little bags full of Pride goodies. And we went into all the hotels, all the bars, and had conversations with our clients, with new clients. So I presented that all to Sarah in a big sort of PowerPoint presentation. And right away she said, I'm in. You need to do what you've just done to me. You need to do that to the head of marketing on both sides this week and present the whole thing again. So from there, I had to do the whole presentation again. Having Sarah on those calls is really beneficial because they didn't say no to the budget. They listened to the full presentation and they approved it there and then, and we were good to go. So I think if I'd gone in without that full case, it would have been a harder sell. But I'd thought of every kind of eventuality, anything that could be beneficial for the business was all labelled in there. And what we were getting out of it, what they were getting out of it.
Yeah.
And having our exec sponsor on that call as well, gave it that little bit of impact.
Yeah.
So
where did those ideas come from? I just really want to delve into that. Those ideas that you sort of explained there in terms of, we could like, we know that there's going to be like more tourism, more visitors into the city, the hospitals, the hospitality and the bars, etc. are going to, maybe the hospitals as well, are going to be busier, so where did those ideas come from? Like, did you brainstorm it as a group? Did you just know that because of like your background? Where did all of those benefits come from? Do you know what I mean?
That's it. I think it's my background. So I used to work in hospitality. I worked in one of the biggest hotels in Edinburgh. I also worked in travel. So I worked in cruise ships. And I know when a cruise ship comes into Scotland, how busy the town gets. So I've got that kind of background knowledge to know that would have that impact. We also have some amazing systems that we can look at and say, last year when it was Pride, our shifts went up by X amount. And so I was able to kind of provide some data around it as well as kind of local knowledge. And that kind of gives it a little bit more clout when you're taking that to kind of senior leader. If you've got that behind you, it really helps to bring it to life.
Yeah. So many lessons in what you've just said there, Michelle. Like, it's just so many. I'm going to just get into Junior's comment for ROI. And I think you're right with this, Junior. ROI, and whenever I'm having conversations with networks, even talking about things like connecting what the network does to commercial outcomes, people start to feel a bit icky. But as you say, Junior, it's the way to get buy-in in terms of resources. And so, it's just something about if you can reframe what you do around something like ROI, for example, and, as you were saying, Michelle, as well, like really tying it to business objectives, it really helps. But the one thing that you said there about your own background in hospitality, and how that helps. So just having that understanding is so critical. I was on a call yesterday with a client who shall remain nameless, but one of the things that he was saying was that there's sometimes a disconnect when you've got people, say, for example, in the corporate center, if we just call it that, and they haven't necessarily got that like retail or manufacturing or operational background. Sometimes it can then be harder for those types of individuals and the network, if the network is dominated by people that are in like desk based, it's hard for them to actually make that connection to the business. So, and then the data as well. I mean,
I think you need, when you're working on something, like Edinburgh Pride and like we're currently doing with Manchester Pride, you've got to have that sort of meticulous, like operational mindset. So now I worked for the travel company. I used to organise hundreds of taxi transfers to and from our local port. So I'd be standing in the car park with a clip chart, scoring off taxis arriving, and it had to be so precise. And with Edinburgh Pride, we had to do that. I had, on the day of the event, I had sandwiches arriving at 7 a.m. at my house. And then I had a taxi book to get that to that point. And then we had to have people at that point. So you really have to have that on the ground operational planning to make these things really work.
Yeah.
So it's really benefited me in this role, having that background.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and we'll move on to that in terms of, your project management discipline, but actually now that you've sort of like explained more of it, I can understand that it's also your operational background as well, all of that coming to bear, with the project management piece. I guess, what do you feel, and obviously you are part of the network as well, what do you feel that brings to a network, like having that sort of experience?
I think sometimes it brings a bit of, everybody in our network is so passionate and it's amazing. And we'll have calls and everybody has so many amazing ideas. And I think quite often I'm the person in the background writing everything down. And then I'll take that chaos and I'll bring it to a plan and say, right, we can achieve this if we do this. And I'll maybe take a bit of the madness and bring it into something that we can actually deliver. So we kind of work well together, because a lot of the people on the network are super creative and have all these amazing ideas. And I can sometimes kind of take that away, break it down, and actually make it a plan of action that we can then deliver. So it's a nice balance, I think.
Yeah, I love that you called it chaos and madness, like that you take the chaos and the madness and the creativity, that's and then you turn it into a plan and like something that can be delivered. I absolutely love that. Do you know what is so interesting? It's really project management skills are really common. So when I took my first global co-chair role, dusting off my Scrum Master skills and agile methodologies saved my life. So I completely agree. And my background is transformation, right? And projects and programs and all of that. It's such a skill, like it's such a skill, but especially for networks. I feel I've actually done a video. I don't know whether it's live yet on my YouTube channel, the channel that Junior is watching this through, where I've talked about an ideal mix of skills. And as you're talking there, Michelle, you said about balance, and you talked about like the creativity and maybe the fun and the wacky and like let's just like have loads of ideas, but then balancing that with the planning, the being organized, and as well, I still love from your background having that operational lens, because I think that is so critical, whether it's either operational or retail, if you're in a if you're in a retail or a B2C business, absolutely, for sure. I guess there's something about, and I didn't have this question in, but for networks that don't necessarily have a project manager, what would you recommend? Would you recommend that they maybe just try and borrow or steal one, like, I don't know, from one of their IT team or somewhere? I always think that the IT teams often have these project managers just lying around.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, if you can, I think that would be great. The more people involved, the better. If not, I think if you can get someone who likes a list, for example, even if it's a Google sheet, just write things down. Get Copilot or whatever you use to kind of take notes, and just make sure you've got actions from those notes and you actually push things forward. It's hard with a lot of ERGs, BRGs, because you're doing it as well as your kind of full-time job. But I find writing things down, making sure you've got a list, and then you follow up on that list makes, because quite often you'll have meeting after meeting, and it's kind of, quite often it's just a chat and nothing really comes of it. So if you've got someone that's actually holding people accountable and delegating the work, for a long time on Pride, it was just Kelton and I were doing a lot of the work. And then what we discovered was we were becoming kind of overwhelmed with the amount of tasks that we were doing. So Kelton created a committee. So now I think there's 6 or 8 of us. And it's that support that it's not always my voice or Kelton's voice and Karan's voice. Everybody is involved. Everybody has their own jobs to do, and everybody's happy to help. So having that support around you, but having someone that will kind of hold people accountable in a nice way. But, just a gentle nudge. Have you done this yet? Just keeping that momentum, I think, is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned there like a committee, like a Pride committee, say, because obviously, so you're a project manager, but you have other things to do, right? You're not only working on, sort of Pride BRG stuff all year round. So just maybe give us a sense of how much of your time this takes up. And I guess it goes back to how important it was to have that business case agreed, so that you could then use some of your day job time to support Pride, right?
That's it. So within Flex, I sit under the revenue function. So any new clients that come on that are of a certain level will come into the team that I'm in, and we'll be allocated them. We bring them on, we get them set up. So my day job is really client implementation, internal change projects. Edinburgh Pride, though, I was really lucky with the business case. Sarah approved it, obviously, as a full-time project. And my manager, Bradley, was really open to me taking that on as part of my workload. So it wasn't ran kind of as part of my BRG time. It was ran as an official project alongside client implementation change projects. So I was able to really put time and effort in without having to do that alongside everything else.
Yeah.
So I was really lucky with that positioning. And because I had a strong business case there, I had buy-in from the country manager.
Yeah.
Bradley really couldn't say no. So lucky for me, Bradley agreed, and I could spend a fair bit of time. Like Manchester Pride at the moment that I'm working on with Karan and Kelton. And again, I have that as a official project within my kind of portfolio of projects. So that makes a big difference.
Yeah. And it's a big, I was on a call yesterday, and it's a big argument for, again, in terms of the sorts of projects and initiatives that the network wants to do. The closer you can tie it to meeting business objectives, the more likely you are to get the resource, to get the time right. So that there is almost, I don't want to say a blurring of lines between like the day job and network activity, but at the end of the day, if you've persuaded the organization that something is good for business, that the network can take the lead on, and then you also have got the skill set within your day job, it's what you do within your day job, why wouldn't you be allowed to do it? To me, it's just like a no-brainer. It's it really is. Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. Tell us about Manchester Pride, because I know that you're currently working on that now, right?
Yes, Karan is in a wonderful job. Karan and Kelton, I think you're meeting Kelton in a couple of weeks. They are based in Manchester. So they've done a great job speaking to the Manchester Pride team. So we are going to be supporting them on the day. We're going to be staffing all of the bars. So you can imagine, big change for Manchester this year. It's going back into Manchester Village this year. So it's been run by volunteers again. So really exciting time for the city, and we're going to be supplying a lot of the bar staff. And we've also got a sponsorship with them. So again, similar to Edinburgh Pride, we're working with the Manchester Pride team to support on the day. So it's going to be a really busy but really exciting weekend. So it's incredible. Good to see that come in.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I guess, and I'm guessing that you sort of almost like built on the business case. So obviously, the way they explained the business case in Edinburgh, but it sounds as though you've like taken it to another level now at Manchester.
I think Edinburgh Pride showed the business what we can do if we look at options like this. If we take opportunities like this, it's shown that it can be a success. In Manchester, we're also city partners with Gadio as well, which again has kind of come from, we've built that business case, we've shown what we can do in Edinburgh. It's worked really well, it's gone down well with the business, and it's kind of helped with these new opportunities that are coming through. So it's really nice to see it kind of almost waterfalling into these new opportunities that are coming through in Manchester. And who knows, maybe we will get to New York Pride one day. Never know.
Well, stranger things have happened. I mean, well, we'll talk off camera, because I've got a client that I could potentially connect you with, that the ERG lead is in New York, right? So they're LGBTQ plus ERG leaders in New York. So maybe we will make it happen. Because the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, and it wasn't in the pre-questions, but in terms of the impact, because you talked about data and the measurement, did you then measure the impact, for example, after Edinburgh Pride? So I don't know whether, as part of, for example, your business case for Manchester Pride, were you able to say, oh, at Edinburgh Pride, this is what we did and this is what happened as a result? Were you able to measure that?
Yeah, some of it was easier than others. So there was things like we could say we won 10 clients in Edinburgh from our walk-ins, because we could track what hotels we'd visited, what bars we'd visited, things like that. And for clients that we already had on the platform, we could say shifts rose by X% or whatever it was for that weekend. And you kind of tail things back like that. There was also things like brand awareness. Edinburgh's a small city. So we had a massive walk-in banner. We were on the front page of the Edinburgh Evening News, walking with this big, huge Indeed Flex banner. So those kind of things are harder to measure because of just brand awareness in the city. The night before Pride, Edinburgh Pride had a sort of pre-party at the Johnny Walker Whiskey Factory on Princess Street. And it was actually our workers were working there that night. So that kind of thing, like the relationships that we built with our workers, I'm sure many businesses have this, because we are an app-based kind of solution. Some of our workers, they see an app, they don't see the people behind the app. So I think in Edinburgh, we actually marched the Pride March with some of our flexers. So it kind of broke down that barrier of, this isn't just an app. Michelle's in Princess Street. If I need to go and ask a question, she's there. You know, it kind of broke down that wall between this is just tech to this is actual people behind this. So I think that was something that we couldn't measure, but something that had a really big impact within the city.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of the measurement, I guess there's something also about and I don't know who helps with your business case, or whether you do it yourself in terms of the business case. But so in a former life, when I used to be an accountant, I used to work on things like business cases. And so when you said, for example, the thing about getting on the front of the paper, I guess, in my mind, I thought you were going to say, and so we valued that as in, if you were going to pay for like a single page spread, what would the cost of that have been? Do you know what I mean? Because there's definitely real value to things like that. It's absolutely incredible. Like I'm blown away, and I think I can't wait to hear what you achieve at Manchester Pride. I think that's going to be incredible in terms of like the impact and the outcome as well.
Yeah, we're really excited for Manchester Pride. It's going to be a great weekend. So all the planning is happening now. So right now it's all spreadsheets and all the you can imagine all the rest of it. But we're only around 7 weeks out, so it's starting to really ramp up. So everybody's really excited about this one.
And let's just talk a little bit about, because you mentioned your exec sponsor, and you sort of said that you took the case to her first, almost like explained it to her, and then that's how that happened. How critical was that, do you think, in terms of even just like the approach that you took to getting it approved and who you spoke to? And, do you sometimes see maybe networks that don't do that bit of, I almost call it like the stakeholder management piece, and then it's then sometimes harder for those networks to get the support that they need. So how important was just the way that you go about getting the support to getting things done?
I think it's really important to have someone at that level on your side. So we were lucky that Sarah is the country manager and she is our exec sponsor. But having her bought into the project and understanding kind of the benefits of it really helped us with the people. So we then had to go to different members of SLT across the business in different departments. And even just having Sarah on those calls to kind of back up what we're doing. And I don't know if it's a Pride ERG thing or not, but sometimes when it's an event like this, within businesses, it can be seen as they just want a night out. It can be seen as a bit of fun and not always, what are we going to get out of this? Really, is this just a night out for you, Michelle? So having that buy-in from Sarah and having that real support to say, this is actually going to benefit the business. Having her actually attend those calls with me to present really, really built impact and built that buy-in across the business, not just from a revenue point of view. So I think it's really, really important.
Yeah. And a follow-up question I've got, actually, when she attended the calls with you as well, did she, because this is when I've seen, and I'm not necessarily talking just now about network sponsorship, but when I've been in, say, for example, in board meetings where there is a sponsor of a paper, if that makes sense, when that's done really well, the sponsor almost kind of like tease the person up and almost like chips in with their support, don't they? Do you know what I mean? Was she doing that as well in the presentations?
It's exactly what happened. So obviously Sarah is kind of SLT, and she, when we went into those meetings, she kicked it off and she said, like, I've had this call with Michelle. She's going to bring this idea to you. I completely support it. And then it was like, hand over to Michelle, right, Michelle, run your presentation. So I already had that sort of attention from senior leaders that I maybe hadn't worked with at that point. So she already had that buy-in ready for me.
Yeah, that is textbook what good sponsorship looks like in the room. You know, when you're going into a room to persuade other people that they need to do something. I mean, you know, brilliant that she did that. And anybody that has maybe got a sponsor that isn't doing that sort of thing, play them this video, because that is textbook, like a sponsor. And as I say, not just for networks, but any board paper that, you know, a sponsor is presenting or supporting, they should tee it up. Say, this person's coming in to present this thing, I fully support it, or, you know, these are maybe the one or two things we want your feedback on, or whatever it be. Just love it. Absolutely love it. Textbook.
We didn't have, we didn't have much pushback at all across business. The only thing that kind of cut was that ROI word. We did have people saying, what's the ROI on this? Why have we chosen this route? And then we had that business case there to say, this is what it is. This is why we're doing this. This is the opportunity, and that sort of supported that. But having that leadership from Sarah and then from the leads of marketing meant that across the business, we didn't receive much pushback at all, because we already had that buy-in from a really high level. We had the budgets secured. We had the support there. It made our lives a lot easier as we got closer to the event, because we weren't getting any kind of, there was no, oh, we can't do that, or we don't have that budget. It was all approved. It was just kind of get this done and move forward. So really important.
Yeah, definitely. Question from Junior here. So I spoke to an ERG lead yesterday who was struggling with the usual, we want to do everything mindset. What are your tips on prioritization and sizing up the work?
Oh, that's a good one, Junior. I think we were kind of chatting about this to start with, weren't we? We were talking about pride and what we wanted to kind of flip from being an internal reason, working with our workers. And we had so many ideas in like New York Pride, London Pride, but I think just working with what you have. So we knew that we had a relatively small budget. So we knew that we technically couldn't do New York. You know, we couldn't do this, we couldn't do that. So I think working within the realms that you have, maybe, like I said, I like a list. I'm that sort of person. Maybe listing out all the things that you do want to do, and then working as a priority from there. What's going to have the biggest impact for whatever it is you want to achieve, and almost like prioritizing them that way, and not writing anything off, but maybe working your way up, like we did with, we started with Edinburgh Pride, we've now got GDO, we've now got Manchester Pride, and kind of slowly burning up, achieving those small steps, but then hopefully unlocking the kind of bigger achievements in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I just add into that, Junior, because I can't remember whether I've shared this with you, but I use a 2x2 grid, you know, so like that, like a 2x2 grid. And I just, you know, you can just get people to brainstorm. So with committees, you know, as co-chairs, you could all, as a committee, you could all brainstorm on separate Post-it notes, all of the ideas that you've got, and then you can plot them by impact and, you know, ease, you know, how easy is it to do the thing? How easy and expensive is it to do the thing? And how impactful is it? So is it high impact, but actually really difficult? Is it high impact, really easy and low cost? And, you know, and you basically just plot it. And then whatever's in the top right, as in like high impact and really easy to do, like those are the things that you probably want to go for. And you'll probably just find that when that exercise is done, you probably haven't got that many that are in the high impact, low cost, really easy to do box. But I just find that helps kind of getting rid of lots of the ideas that keep cropping up, and nobody ever really sort of like has the conversation to kind of kill off like some of the ideas that just aren't going to fly.
I think
Send
it's
me that.
asking that question as well. Like, I don't know if it's a project management brain set, but I think it's
Yeah.
asking if someone comes up with a wild idea, it's saying, how do you see that happening?
Yeah.
You know, how can we
Yeah.
achieve that? And then sometimes that kind of winds it back a little bit. You're like, actually,
Yeah.
maybe that's not the best
Yeah.
idea, but actually
Yeah.
just talking about it makes a big difference.
Absolutely. And I would say the other thing as well, I'd add, and maybe you can come in on this one as well, Michelle, in terms of resource. So in terms of, you know, is the resource there to deliver? I spoke to an ERG chair, I want to say maybe about 2 to 3 months ago. And I always talk about quarterly planning. So I sort of say, you know, try to not have more than like one big thing in a quarter as a network. I think that, you know, just in terms of capacity to manage and get things done, one big thing a quarter is more than plenty. I spoke to a network chair, big tech firm, and she was actually saying they do that. They're like one thing a quarter, and actually at the start of the quarter, they actually look at the roles and they say, are we certain that people have still got the capacity? Has anybody got issues because of workload or, you know, like personal stuff going on or whatever? And they actually rejig the roles to make sure that they have still got the capacity. I thought that was really cool. I'd not heard that before, that they literally revisit the roles as well on a quarterly basis based on capacity.
We do similar as well. We have a spreadsheet for every quarter, and it will have things like bi-weekly Slack messages, and people can put their name against a date to say, I'll take that one, or I'll take that one. We have quarterly kind of calls where everybody jumps on a call together. We kind of present what we've been working on. We did used to do it monthly, but like you say, the resource, it was really challenging to build a slide deck every single month. So I think having something that you can go on and say, like, I've got a bit of extra capacity this month, I'll take that. You know, that's how we kind of run our committee. And it means everybody's taking a turn. It's not all left to one person.
Yeah.
So it makes a big difference.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to have to pick your brains after this, Michelle, because you've clearly really gone in on the on like the you know, as a BRG, you've really sort of like tweaked some of the processes and the way that the work's allocated and organized. As you said, you know, you brought some organization to chaos, to what potentially was chaos. And the other thing as well that I thought was really interesting when you said that you know, in terms of the importance of getting the support, was because, you know, it could easily just have been seen as a night out, right? Especially as it was attached to Pride. But I think that probably goes for a lot of networks, actually. A lot of the events and things like that are often being asked for funding for could just be seen as just like a social event, you know, just like a knees up basically. So I think that again is why it's also quite important to get permission. So for any individuals that did have those thoughts that it was really just like a party, how were you able to sort of like bring them round? What was the messaging that sort of did it?
Again, I think because we took it so seriously as a BRG, it wasn't, you know, we weren't talking about it in the sense of, we worked that weekend. You know, the guys come up from Manchester to support us for the weekend, and it's a hard shift. You know, we're running around Edinburgh trying to organise everything. But I think making sure that everybody knew the level of organisation that had gone into it, they knew what the day looked like. We literally had an hour by hour plan because we were across the city. And so I think deliver it in a sense that it wasn't a night out. We took it very seriously. We had that buy-in as well. We had the business case. The business case that I built, it's not I don't know what a traditional business case looks like, but mine was a presentation. So it was pretty interactive. It was a Google slideshow. So it had that little bit of fun, but also in there was the data. There was a budget planner. There was a merchandise planner. And that was all within this slide deck that was shared out across the business. Anybody that wanted to know what we were working on, they could see it in kind of live time, all the kind of background work that was going into it. So I think anybody that did initially think, oh, those guys are just going for a night out, but you kind of brought it to life and showed them the work that was going on in the background, they quite quickly realised that this was actually going to be quite a hard-working weekend for us. So I think having that makes a huge difference, especially if you get someone sort of questioning what you're doing, and you can say, hold on, have a look at this. We love receipts, so we bring the receipts and we say, look at what we're working on.
Absolutely, bring the receipts, and it demonstrate, you know, because you had all of that rigor, it demonstrates, you know, the seriousness of it. So even though it was a fun and it was a fun project, but the seriousness of it, and also the receipts in terms of the impact for sure. I'm going to wrap things up with the one more thing. What is the one thing that that ERGs or BRGs? I mean, there is that whole thing of do you think more ERGs should rebrand to BRGs? Do you think that would help with their focus? I'm going to ask you that as an aside, and then I'll come to the one thing. What's your thought on that, ERG versus BRG?
I know, like at the summit, a lot of people had never heard of BRGs.
Yeah.
From my background, I've never heard of ERGs. It's always been a business resource group. I've never known it to be anything else. But I think it being a business resource group, it sits within our HR team kind of manage the BRGs from a level. I think it makes it more, when we have new starters at the business, they're instantly introduced to our BRGs as part of their introduction to Flex. They say, like, we've got our Pride network, we've got our Women's network. And I think it just makes it kind of really high level when people are coming. We're really proud of the groups that we have throughout the business.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good thing to have a BRG, although I'm sure ERGs are very similar.
I mean, I know that, so BRG, there was, I'm going to go back to like maybe sort of 10 years ago or so, there was a lot of debate around that BRGs were like the more strategic, and that, you know, everybody in the States was like, we shouldn't have ERGs, there should be BRGs. Da, da, da. So I know that in the States in particular, there'll be a lot of organizations that have got BRGs. I mean, obviously we have them in the UK as well, but some would argue that the B doesn't necessarily guarantee the business focus. But for Indeed Flex, it clearly is there. And also at the summit, it was very clear, like, you know, of all of the case studies, yours clearly was the most business focused. It just was. You were the only ones talking about ROI, right? Which is really interesting. But yeah, so what is the one thing that ERGs or BRGs can do to bring more project discipline to their major activities, especially their like hero and flagship activities, even if they don't have a project manager?
Oh, that is interesting. I think, as I say, write things down. Build a business case. It doesn't have to be a boring document. You know, build a interactive presentation, lucid board, whatever it is you use. But really because everybody works so hard on these ERGs, BRGs. And often if you're having a conversation, you'll kind of down the work that you've done. And you'll say, oh yeah, it was just an event, you know. But people need to see the work that goes into these things. So put them in a deck, put them on a website, whatever it is, and share that out. You know, shout about the work that you're doing, but make sure that everything is documented. You know, document the things that you're doing, document the achievements. As a project manager, every time we close a project, we'll run a kind of project close, and we'll run almost like a post-mortem on the project and see what went well, what didn't go well, what we learned. And I think doing that for an event like Edinburgh Pride or something like this is so beneficial, because you can take those lessons forward, share them with the business. If another ERG or BRG are holding something similar, they can learn from maybe the mistakes or the wins that you had on yours. So write things down, document everything, and share it wide.
Yeah. And actually, you know, starting with a really strong business case or a really strong deck that documents what you're going to do, that then it almost like sets you up then, doesn't it, to follow through, like with a bit of rigor, and to keep documenting, you know, have a plan, you know, have a list, etc. Absolutely incredible, Michelle. Really, really fantastic, honestly. So we're going to wrap things up. I mean, if Indeed Flex, are you UK based or are you global? Or just
global, UK
okay.
and US.
Yeah. Okay. Hence the New York Pride thing, right? I get it. If people want to know more about, you know, or they want to connect with you and sort of like find out more, etc., where's the best place? Where do you tend to live online? Is it here on LinkedIn or
LinkedIn is perfect.
Okay.
Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm getting better at LinkedIn. This is new for me, but I'm absolutely getting there. But yeah, Instagram, LinkedIn, absolutely.
Perfect. Michelle, thank you so much. It's been an actual eye-opener, and I feel maybe we need a follow-up with maybe you and Junior talking about really delving into like the project skills that you know, the ERGs should be using, and we can really go into like some of the tools and frameworks and things like that, because I think actually there's definitely some some value in that. And for anybody that's followed me over to YouTube, and I know Junior, you managed to find us. Thank you so much. Apologies for the tech, but once I'm live, it's trickier. So if you followed us over from LinkedIn over here onto YouTube, welcome. This if you're watching this now on YouTube on the ERG strategy channel, this is where all of the LinkedIn lives live, right? Like as a proper library, and it's much easier to find and all of that. So yeah, thank you for being with us. And if you're watching this on the replay, thank you for spending 45 minutes of your day to listen to this incredible case with Michelle. Michelle, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
Fantastic. Have a good weekend, everyone. Ciao.
Thanks, guys.